Great, thanks very much, Nate. Um, it was interesting because in the badge hackathon, I had set up basically a discussion and then had to run off and go in the other room. So I was very torn on Wednesday, but it was a very interesting session down the hall, looking at badges specifically mostly for refugees, although it was attended by a number of people from the humanitarian field, Tish Gonzalez and my colleagues from MSF. But the focus there was really the needs of refugees and how open badges can change the reality for them. Tania Martinelli had put together a really interesting crowd of people on very short notice within about 3 weeks. And she said she was expecting maybe half of the calls to come back, and it turned out just about 95% of the people showed up and were very interested in what was happening. So there was, the first part of the session was a lot of exposition, talking about what are badges, why would we use them, etc. A lot of the fundamentals of Italian law and how there's a duty of providing recognition for the refugee or for all residents, really. Although there was some discussion about, well, who pays for that, and basically what happens is it devolves down to the actual region of Italy. But the idea is that, so for example, Italy, I think, has already been fined for not following through on this human right of recognition of learning. So it's basically a bit of a burning platform and a reason to actually do something for recognition of possibly informal recognition of informal learning, all the way up to formal recognition of formal learning. So after that, Tania basically broke us into groups, and she had taken the badge canvas, and I wish I had a picture of it here. I wasn't able to pull it up to show you. She basically took a few versions of the badge canvas, including the original one for Digital Me, one that Serge had come up with, and one that I had also modified, and came up with her version, very much focused on the Italian experience, but many of you would recognize the overall pattern of it. I'll see if I can bring it up as the discussion goes on. But and then basically we were saying, let's put ourselves in the viewpoints of the various stakeholders in the process. So some examples would be there was people who were running prisons and were concerned about the skills recognition of people or the employability of people leaving prisons. And of course there's a big overlap between the prison population, refugee population, populations at risk. So how can we recognize those skills? Another one was the notion of voluntary repatriation. So a number of people want to go back to their home country, and the idea is to make it easier for them to do that. So there are a number of projects underway for people to make relationships, for example, with first world companies who want to establish operations there, have them go back and be an agent for that company. That's a very productive solution. And so the idea of tracking those kinds of skills. So we basically started about 4 or 5 badges, talking about things from that point of view, what kinds of skills. So for example, the table I was at, we chose communication as a skill, and that would be a communication for somebody who would be a job entry applicant, or perhaps there's a role in MSF called cultural mediator, and this is a person who acts as a spokesperson for their refugee group. More than a translator, they're actually seen as an intermediary, sometimes an advocate for their group. And there's a skill set that comes around with it, and obviously communication is a good part of that skill set. And there was a rich discussion about, well, what is communication, and does it really, is it a skill, or is it a capability that involves many skills, including your values and your assertiveness and even technical skills. So basically what we did was we started about 4 or 5 of these, and Tania worked with a company called Yobox, and I was trying to look this up, but I was having connection problems earlier. I believe she's also associated with another organization called CBOX, which I believe stands for Competency Box, and the proposal there was to take the model of what was established down the hall on Wednesday and take it on the road in the Bologna region and even beyond, and start workshopping this concept with people, with the various stakeholders around the table, and co-create badges. So it was really a very interesting moment, and I was quite impressed by the sincerity later in the day when the high-level leaders of the Bologna city, for example, the treasurer, were talking about what makes a learning city. So that's it for that one. Oh, and one thing, she also at the end of the session played a video where she basically buttonholed the Dalai Lama when he was in town. And I'd really love to get a hold of this video, and actually it's a little hard to hear, so I want to put titles on it because it's really interesting. What he had to say was, you need to take care of the needs of refugees when they arrive. She was basically asking him, because he in fact was a refugee himself. So he said, you need to take care of their human needs, then you need to take care of their social needs, and then you need to educate them. And that was just a wonderful message to end with.